Welcome back to the Real Life Runners podcast. Today's episode is a little different, and honestly, it's one that I'm so excited for all of you to hear. Grief is something that touches all of us, whether we realize it or not. And for many runners, running becomes a way to process grief, run through emotions, or sometimes run away from them. So today, I invited a very special guest, one of my very good friends, to help us explore this even deeper. I'm so excited to introduce you to Sheetal Story. She's a grief counselor, psychic medium, and expert in human design and astrology. And yes, you heard all of that, but she also blends it with the science of psychology and puts it all together in a way that we can really connect with and understand. So if you're feeling a little skeptical right now, I get it. I come from a Catholic background myself, and I want to invite you to just stay open because Sheetal brings a grounded, beautiful, and deeply compassionate perspective that blends science, spirituality, and soul in a way that I believe that everyone can connect with, no matter your background or beliefs. So in this conversation, we explore how grief shows up in the body, how emotions affect our running and our recovery, and how movement, especially running, can become a tool for healing if we learn to tune in and pay attention. So whether you've experienced a major loss, whether you feel like your body's changing in a way that you don't recognize anymore, like through perimenopause and menopause, or if you just sense that there's something unspoken holding you back, this episode is for you. So let's dive in. All right, welcome to the show today. I am super excited to introduce you all to someone extremely special, and I'm so glad that she agreed to come on this podcast. Hello, Sheetal. I'm so glad you're here with us.
Hello, Angie. I am so excited to be here. Thank you for asking me on.
So today's episode is going to be different than anything you've really heard us talk about before, and I'm really excited to dig into this topic. So she wears many hats. She is a grief counselor, she's a psychic medium, she's a human design and astrology expert. And so I asked her to come on the podcast for us to talk about the concept and the topic of grief, because there's a lot of runners that process grief through running, whether they know it or not. So, Sheetal, can you talk a little bit about your journey and how grief work has become such a central part of your purpose?
I have many tools in my toolkit, as it were. I am a psychic medium, grief support counselor, law of attraction master coach. I've got a degree in business. I got lots of tools in the toolkit. And my gifts started to come. I was born with the ability to see spirit and feel people's energy. I actually have the ability to see aura. I know that's going to probably blow some people's minds. They're like, okay. And that was literally my experience growing up. I didn't know any differently. I grew up in a very spiritual family, very accepted. And I learned at a very young age that not everybody can do what I do. And being a first generation Canadian, I'm East Indian, I'm born to immigrant parents. I just wanted to fit in. And so being not only looking different, my mom used to sew my clothes and cut my hair, so I'm very different than my peers. Then I also had these abilities. And I actually, at the age of 9, I turned them all off. My mom's, if you don't like them, just turn it off. Just close the door. I almost envision a trapdoor at the top of your head and just close it. And I did. And it went away. I was a completely normal, quote unquote. Went to university, met the man of my dreams. We moved to Vancouver, had our first child who had a lot of medical issues. And then we came back to Edmonton, Canada to be with all our family. So my husband's family, my family here. And then we had our second child. And at that point, then all of my gifts just came back. And I was like, wow, what is happening? I was going back into the field of purchasing. I was in sales and marketing for the food industry. And I was like, I'm seeing dead people. This is what is happening to my life. I thought I went to see a psychologist. I went to see people from my head, my vision, because I was seeing aura. And the guys, no, you have perfectly normal eyes. And I was like, okay. So I really was trying to sort out what is happening to me. And everybody I went to that sort of was interesting was not in the medical field, was like, you have gifts that are coming back and you need to go and start to look into them and start to develop them. And every time I looked for a teacher, the right one just appeared and those doors just started to open for me. And if you've ever been in life where, everything is just flowing in a direction that you didn't anticipate, you're like, what is happening? I had the most amazing teachers. My abilities were just growing leaps and bounds. I was able to do things that even my teachers were like, wow, you're doing it so fast. And I was like, what does that even mean? And they say, you have this ability, like just continue to develop it.
Yeah.
So when I started to develop my psychic mediumship, so for those who don't quite understand what that means, is I have
Yeah.
the ability to connect to your energy and see what you're thinking about, what you've been feeling, what's happened in your past, and help you to navigate what's coming. So your trajectory, because you're in motion, right? As a runner, you decide, you make choices in your life that propel you into your forward momentum. I don't do that. Like I just can tell you where you've been thinking about things. So I think a lot of times people go to psychics and think we know the future, and that's actually not true. You create your future. We can just tell you what you've been thinking about and almost give you permission to go down that path. So people who come to see me in that way were really lost in life or are struggling in some way and would just come to see me because all other paths have been exhausted. And then the other part of my gifts, being a medium, means I'm able to connect to the spirit of your loved ones that are tethered to you by love. And they seek me out to then help you in some form or fashion of what you've been going through. Or if they have something that's left unsaid, they will want to get that message to you. So I've been trained as an evidential medium, which means I have to prove life after passing and give like actual evidence. I can't just be like, oh, I feel your grandmother and she loves you very much. Like it's very generic crap.
Yeah.
Raise the standards out there, people. That is not good mediumship. So, in that, then as I was training and developing my evidential mediumship, I noticed that a lot of people were coming to me and were navigating grief. Obviously, people who have passed away and they didn't know how to navigate it. Some of them were stuck in part of their cycles, and I
Yeah.
started to get really curious about that. Now, I'm a lover of certifications and schooling and education, and so I went down the path of getting all my certifications and things. And one of them was a spiritual grief. Actually, it was grief support counseling. And I added the spiritual part of it because I then could add those parts of the spirit and what is your soul desiring?
Mm,
Because every grief is a transition point.
mm,
And I specialize in moving women through grief as a transformational experience in their life. Because in that moment, you are learning what is true for you. You are testing everything you have ever learned, whatever religion told you, whatever they told you in the Bible. Now you're like, is this true for me? Is this real?
yeah.
Because you're in the depths of grief. It's soul's pain. And no
Mm,
one talked about soul pain in any of the grief counseling certifications that I looked at. But this one did. And it was, she had actually moved through the teacher of this course. And the person who put this together was a psychologist who had lost her son at a very young age. And there was nobody in the market that was talking about soul pain. And I was like, yes, she's talking about the soul. Like, I feel like I'm a specialist in the soul. So that pulled me in, and I just loved it. It was very spiritual as well. She did a lot of indigenous practices as part of the counseling piece of it. And I've just incorporated it into my coaching and all of the other things that I have under my tool belt. So, yeah, grief really came naturally to me. And as I look back in my past, I've always leaned in when people were sad or having a hard time. They'd
mhm.
actually called me the bad weather friend in high school, where I had an office in the girls' bathroom. And if they were going through a hard time, they would come and seek me out. And then we'd put our coats on the floor and we'd sit down and like, tell me what's happening for you.
Aw.
So it was almost like I was a counselor, right, from a
Yeah.
very young age. And I do realize that's my own trauma because I create bonding, belonging, value by being there for people in hard times. So
Yeah.
that was my own trauma from being an immigrant kid trying to make
Mm,
friends. I'll help you when you're sad. And
mm,
then that just created almost a characteristic, I think, of my personality that as I've leaned into this, I've also healed the other side of it as no, I get to be worthy regardless of how much I support you in your hard times.
yeah.
Yeah, it's been, I think we all come to that. Like even in your own past, when you think about the gifts and characteristics you have now, it's born because you went through something hard in
Yeah.
your childhood and your life that has given you these gifts and talents now.
Mhm.
And when you look back, your life is going to be peppered with these experiences of grief. They change you, they're meant to. And
Mhm.
I get to walk that path with you. I shine my light in the darkness for you to find your way.
I love that so much. And I want to take a little pause for a second because I know that there are a lot of people that listen to this podcast that are a part of a Christian faith. And the one of the reasons that I love you so much and wanted to bring you on to share you and your amazing gifts with my audience is because you have such a well-rounded perspective. It's not like you were mentioning at the beginning, you're not quote unquote just a psychic, right? Or just a medium. Like you have a degree, like you have a background in psychology and in business and in science and all of these more woo, quote unquote, woo types of things, right? Which we can get into that again. So if you are listening to this and you're like, I'm not going to listen to this, this girl's a psychic, this is a bunch of baloney, right? I just really want to invite you as a listener to just stay open to this conversation. I also come from a Christian background. I'm of the Catholic faith. And the more I dig into all of these things, I am seeing that everything is connected. And so if that's you, if you're sitting here, if you're skeptical, Sheetal is amazing. Just stay open to this conversation. That's all I'm asking, especially if you've experienced any sort of grief. You can take, and this is one of the things that I love about you and in our conversations in the past, is take pieces. You don't have to take all of it, right? Take the parts that apply to you and the parts that you're connecting with, if that is something that can help you. What
And
would
I
you
love
say?
that you mentioned that. I love that so much. I'm not here to prove anything to anybody.
Yeah.
And you can believe what you believe. I think that's why I'm a spiritual person. I'm
Yeah.
non-denominational and I'm actually Hindu by faith. So that I was brought up in a Hindu family, but I really identify as spiritual over religious. So
Mhm.
that spiritual nature really runs through Catholicism,
Yes.
through any kind of Eastern or Western religion and
Hmm.
Eastern religion. And it's really that prevailing view that there's a loving presence
Hmm.
that weaves through everything, you and me. So I'm an expression of God as you are an expression of
Hmm.
God. That is truth. Your loved ones in spirit love you still so much and are invested in you. They want to see you win. They want to
Yeah.
see you shine. And so even if you watch for those little signs and symbols from spirit, they will show you that they love you and they've never stopped. So
Yeah.
that bond of love is everlasting, just like God's love for you is everlasting. So you're an expression of the divine, having experience of the divine itself within you and others.
Yeah,
So
and I
there's
think
nothing
that
else.
that's what all religions believe. And
Yeah.
I also agree. Like I would consider myself a very spiritual person. I do practice one faith because that's how I was raised and there's a lot of things, but I don't agree with everything that religion, that formal religion teaches. And I think that it is important for us to start to see these connections because what one person might call meditation, another person calls prayer. It's the same thing. It's trying to tap into a higher power. You pray to God, or you pray to the saints, or you pray to your deceased loved ones to help guide you. And so I just, again, want to just make sure that people hopefully keep an open mind. Like you can switch us off if you want to, and that would be a loss on, I think, on your end because of all the amazing things we're going to talk about today. But just stay open to it and see what comes. That's what I think.
Yeah, and I think the openness piece allows you to be discerning for yourself as
Yes,
to what feels true in your soul.
I love
Because
that.
that soul piece, that intuition that lives within you is so
Hmm.
wise, knows exactly what feels right and what feels not so. So
Yeah.
when we look at a piece of, so I would say religion or a piece of doctrine, there's all these dogma, maybe all of these things that they say you're supposed to be and believe. And I think there's truth and goodness in it, but I also think it's also been changed and interpreted. And so we get to then keep that interpretation for ourselves when we have experiences like this and
Yes.
feel like what feels true to me and what doesn't. I always say, even in my readings and in my classes, take what feels right and leave the rest. Like I could be totally full of poop and that's fine. I'm not here to prove anything to you. I'm really just here to show you that there's another thing that exists in this world. You live in the world of energy. We all do. This is
Yeah.
an energetic world above everything else. We
Hmm.
can only perceive a very small part of the spectrum, which is the light spectrum. We can't
Hmm.
hear, we can't feel gamma rays or X rays, but that exists in our world. And so then couldn't it be true that there is energy and other things happening? Heaven is literally here on earth.
Yeah.
Why not be open to that? And then judge it for yourself and see how
Hmm.
it feels for you. And then go to church and then see how that feels for you
Hmm.
versus believing I have to believe this is true or else I will be damned. No, you don't. That
Right.
doesn't necessarily be true for you.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. So let's dig into the topic at hand here, which is grief, and specifically how grief lives in the body and how movement, like through running, can be a pathway to healing. What helped you to see this connection between the grief, the mental and emotional side of grief, and the physical side of grief?
I think one of the things I really love, and before I even started to get into grief, I started to get into the teachings of Gabor Mate and Peter Levine and all these psychologists that were really leading the way in psychology for understanding that emotions live in the body. That it's not just Dr. Gabor is a doctor and Peter Levine is a psychologist. And when they started to build their work together and started to learn about things, the body holds this energy for us and it holds it in very specific ways. It's wild. And there was a statistic. I used to work with an organization here that helped children who have been abused, sexually abused. And that organization, the lady who used to run it, she was had a horrible experience with someone in her family. She talks about it very openly, but she shared a statistic that 70% of children who've experienced childhood trauma will have cancer. There's a
Wow.
correlation to childhood trauma and cancer. And I was like, what is that? That is then psychology, that is emotions living in the body. And until you heal it out of the body and remove it from the body, your
Hmm.
body will continue to store it for you. Your body is brilliant. It will heal itself if given all the perfect conditions to do. But also, the perfect conditions include the energy of your thoughts. And if you continue to think thoughts that I'm a piece of crap and life is not good and all these things that you've maybe heard in your life, that stores in the body so you can continue to move forward. Your body's only job is to keep you moving forward in life. It is your vessel in this lifetime. And then your brain's only job is to keep the vessel safe. So it will always live in the known and try to make sure that you are doing things that keep the body safe. So I'm sure you've experienced in running. I've heard, I don't do this myself, but I've heard people that as you're doing marathons, your body, your brain is going, get out,
Right.
and your body's, we got this, we can do this. You have
Hmm.
to override the brain because this is where you want to go. So the brain's only job is to keep your body safe. Your body's only job is to keep you alive, and it will keep you alive under all odd circumstances.
Hmm.
I had a client who her father was going through end of life. He had cancer. The doctors had said it's time. They removed care. All of his machines were turned off. And he lived for 4 days without water, without sustenance, without medicine. And she messaged me up on day 3 and she said, what is this, Sheetal? Can you tap in and find out what
Hmm.
is happening? Why won't he transition? I said, I feel like you've given him permission. He's waiting for your mom to come in and say, I give you permission to leave and I forgive you. And she's, my parents have been divorced for 20 years. Like literally he's waiting for my mom. I'm like, that's what his soul is saying to me. I'm waiting for her. So she's, oh gosh. So she convinced her mom to come to the hospital. Her mom's, I forgive you for everything. It all worked out perfectly. It's your time to go. And she left the room and he departed the physical plane. He passed away.
Hmm.
So, like that kind of stuff, you can't make that up. Like his body was waiting until that final lesson was complete. So, the body's only job is to keep you alive and to try to keep you moving forward through your life lessons. And then the soul is the energy that animates the entire thing. And science can prove that exists. It's called your bioplasma field or your electromagnetic field. And
Hmm.
anything that's alive on this planet will have an electromagnetic field. So, that energy animates you. That's your vitality. When you take your last breath, that energy now moves into the next plane of existence. So it just moves into energy. That's it. It's not stuck. It doesn't have to be ushered. It just moves into it. It's intelligent. So when we think about that, that your body's only job is to keep you safe, it will hold these emotions and hold it in a very specific way that it will deposit it in different parts of your body based on the emotion. For example, with the heart, anything to do with love or personal love of others, feeling like you're a good person, that you're lovable, that all deposits around the chest area and into the heart, hands, and into the arms. So when we have issues around love, or I have a lot of social workers that come to see me, and they're always on a year off work because their hands have gone numb, and it's because the system here in Canada, anyways, is very broken, and so they're trying above all odds with this beautiful heart of theirs to try to help people and keep them out of systems that are not good for them, keep them off the street, and they just can't. And they end up burning out and coming to see me. And all of them have numb hands and arms that feel numb. It's like it's all connected through the heart, right? And so that as they heal themselves and they go back to work a year later, and then it comes back again and they end up moving out of the field. It's amazing how many people have that experience.
Hmm.
So, one of the great books to read if you're wanting to learn more about where the body holds energy, it's called The Body Keeps the Score from Bessel van der Kolk, I think, wrote that one. The other one is one that I actually keep on my desk because I do reference it a lot, and it's called Feelings Buried Alive Never Die from Carol K. Truman. So this is actually a little handy dandy guide that will tell you the emotions and where they're held in the body. So it's not a pseudoscience. It's actually becoming more and more aware. And
Yeah,
yet they never treat it in med school. And the med school actually deals with the body. And yet how many times when you go to your doctor, do they ask you about your lifestyle? What's happened for you? What has emotionally changed in your life? If you have a
right.
good doctor, they'll ask you those questions. So
Yeah.
grief being held in the body, and how can we move that out? Of course, therapy, somatic therapy is really good, but also running moves energy. And especially if
Mhm.
you're crying while you're running or you're emoting as you're running, it gives you that sort of movement of the energy out of the body.
Mhm.
And even when you're listening to music, if you're listening to music too, that the kind of music you listen to can also help you emote and move energy through the body too. So it's a really beautiful practice. Running itself is very meditative, as is being in the shower. So you can always get really your best ideas sometimes when you're running or you're in the shower, because your brain almost disengages because it goes, oh, we're fine. We're just running. It's just this natural rhythm of your feet hitting the pavement, and you're breathing and everything just settles down. So meditation and running are quite synonymous. I think I noticed that from a lot of my clients that run and a lot of my friends that are runners. They say it feels so calming. It's the only time that their brain isn't screaming at them. So, unless you're running a marathon, then it's probably screaming at you.
It's telling you to stop. Yeah. Everything that you're saying is so true. And can definitely validate that with so many experiences as a physical therapist. And one specifically comes to mind. There was this one woman that came in one day and she told me she was having lower back pain. And she told me it was a 12 out of 10, the level of pain. It was so bad, 12 out of 10. She was in agony, just awful. She was a bus driver. And so she couldn't work. She was out of work and she was just in so much pain. And she had been passed from one doctor to the next. And by the time she got to my office, I put her on the table to do my assessment and I just started talking to her. And we just started chatting. And I was doing my little assessment. So I had my hands on her back, but I wasn't doing anything crazy. I wasn't, people tell me I have magic hands, but in this case, this was the wildest experience. So I was just talking to this woman, and somehow we got into this conversation. I don't remember how, but essentially she told me that one of her best friends betrayed her. And she told me about this whole experience. And I just listened and I just had my hands on her as I was assessing what was actually happening to her physically. Does she have tight muscles or does she have this or that? And essentially, when she sat up, when I had her sit up, she told me the pain was gone. Gone. And I thought to myself, okay, I know I'm good, but I'm not that good, right? There was definitely something else going on here. And that was such a in your face example of these emotions, these very strong emotions of betrayal that this woman was dealing with and how that affected her physically.
So true. And it's gonna blow your mind and maybe the listener's mind. So in my little handy dandy guide of feelings buried alive never die,
Yeah.
lower back pain is in a relationship that hurts, running away from a situation, feeling unsupported. Like you cannot make that up. And exactly what happened with the bus driver, feeling unsupported and betrayed in a relationship that was very dear to her. So
Mhm.
it's wild how the body can hold these things. I have a certification called subconscious imprinting technique amongst the many that I have. And one of the things we deal with is emotions in the body. I had a client that had come to me during the time that I was doing my practicum, and she's, I really need your help. I'm like, I'm not certified yet. I can't help you. And she's like, we're just going to do it as part of your practicum. I really need your help. I haven't been able to lift my arms past like shoulder height for the last 2 years. I've gone to physio. I've had x-rays done. I've had massages. Nothing is helping. It is so painful. She tell my husband has to shave my armpits. And I was like, oh my gosh. She's
Oh,
like, I can't
man.
do it. And so I was like, okay, let's do an intake. And it turned out she gave me permission to share this anonymously. So she has a sister. She's one of three sisters. She's the youngest. And her middle sister has a drug addiction. And the addiction was so bad that her two children were taken away. And my client adopted the two children.
Wow.
And and then when on the day that the adoption went through, they also found out that they were pregnant with twins.
Oh, my
So they
goodness.
had four children under under the age of 7
Wow.
right away, but they are such beautiful parents. Like it totally is their soul's purpose to be these kids stewards in this lifetime. And then about 2 years ago, what happened is she was in a yoga class. Right before the yoga class, she got a call that her sister was back in rehab. Because I said, "What happened 2 years ago?" Tell me. I was in a yoga class and I think maybe I did something there, but I've never had a problem with yoga. I said, "Tell me what happened before the yoga class." And that's when she said, my God, that's a call from my sister. And I said, "Tell me about that story." And then she went into it. And then as we started to do the technique to release that from her body, it was unbelievable. And then that night, Sheetal, look at me, look at me. She sent me a video with her like lifting her arms above her head. She's like, "I did 50 push-ups, Sheetal. Oh my God, I can
Wow.
shape your armpits." And I was like, that's wild. And all we did was
Yeah.
just talk it through. We used a
Hmm.
specific technique to get the emotions to move through her body. And even
Right.
as she gets somewhat meditative state with her eyes closed and she's repeating statements after me. You can feel oh my gosh, Sheetal, I feel like someone's stabbing me in the back. No one's stabbing her. She's laying on a bed,
Yeah.
but it's totally fine.
Yeah.
And I said, "Okay, repeat after me. All the feelings that I have that I'm stabbing my sister in the back by releasing this, I destroy and uncreate it now." And she just repeated those statements after me, and then the pain went away, and then everything moved out of the body. So
Hmm.
it's so wild. We have such a
Yeah.
powerful mechanism in the body and in the brain. And if
Hmm.
we can use those to move the energy out of the body, we can actually heal ourselves and
Hmm.
let that go. So running is one of those ways that we do that, right? It's
Yeah.
moving that energy, but doing it with intention, allowing yourself
Mhm.
to cry on a run and just thinking about things that are hurting your heart and that you're moving through on a run with intention of what is this about? What is this trying to teach me?
Mhm.
Thank you. I release this now. And if you want to cry on your run, cry and see how
Yeah.
that feels in the body.
Yeah. So, is there, are there certain prompts or something that we can do to frame the run in order to use it as that therapeutic tool? Because I think there's a lot of runners that use running as a way to disconnect. And
Mm.
they go out, they're like, I just want to get away from all of it, like literally running away from their problems. We're running away from the stress. We're running away from these uncomfortable emotions that we want to, that we don't want to feel. And I think maybe sometimes that can be useful, maybe. But really, if we're going to do this thing of running anyway, why not use it for our highest good, not only physically, but also mentally and emotionally, psychologically, spiritually? And I think that there's a lot of people that have experienced that, but they don't know how to intentionally experience that. And so, do you have any tips for us of a way to get us into a state of mind that is more conducive to using that for release?
I think you said it. Intention is so powerful. So
Mm-hmm.
in spiritual work and in psychic work, we talk about intention being we telling the universe what we want the energy to go to, and we're
Mm-hmm.
also telling our brain what to focus on. So intention is one of the most powerful tools you can use in your spiritual toolkit. And so even having that intention before you go on a run of I want to move this energy out of my body and then just go have a run and see what happens if you feel. And again, if you feel because emotions moving is emotions. So that's tears, that can be laughter, that can be anger, that can be anything that comes up during that time. So it's the same thing in meditation. If we make set the intention to move energy through the body,
Mm-hmm.
what then can happen is that people start to cry or get all of a sudden a story will come to mind and you're like, why am I
Yeah.
thinking of that childhood story? It's because it's connected to the emotion. So it's almost like you're pulling a thread and everything attached to that thread starts to come up. You're almost pulling a weed, and every root that's coming up is part of that weed, is part of that pattern that's been in your life. Setting an intention before you go on your run is a great idea. If you're moving through something with grief, I want to set the intention that I'm moving the energy out of my body as I go on this run. And then just notice what happens. Like you're
Yeah.
building your own book of evidence of how this works for you. So
Mm-hmm.
trying that intention out. The other part of grief though is there's a part of grief right at the beginning when something happens. It's called denial or shock at the beginning. And that gives the body and the brain time to just have a moment, have a pause. So
Mm-hmm.
anytime you've ever been given any bad news, right? I know every time I've been given bad news, I'm like, shut up. That is not true. I was like, why would someone lie about that? Looking back on it in
Right.
hindsight, but it's like the first thing that comes out of my mouth. And that's an example really of denial, right? Of just, I just need some space. So
Yeah.
running is a form of denial, as you said, is like as a kind of disassociating from all of these things, just giving
Hmm.
yourself a moment to breathe. We can't negate that benefit in life. That
Right.
is really quite important. Especially I know a lot of professional women run and they find that time is so helpful for the brain that they
Hmm.
can just have no thought. Whereas I would meditate in the day and give myself that space, especially women who are high achievers and professionals and CEOs, having that and doing that is hard
Hmm.
to do a meditative practice. So their running is their meditative practice. I don't want to take that away from anybody in terms
Hmm.
of that in itself is quite healing to just give
Hmm.
yourself that downtime that I don't have to do that healing because I think especially in the spiritual world we can be so obsessed with healing. I'm healing this, I'm working on this and I'm working on that. I'm
Yeah.
like, where you have joy in your life, girl? Like you need to have some fun. It's not always work. Yes, we're always healing and always working forward, but there's enough going on in life. Why not just enjoy the things that you enjoy
Hmm.
and give that to yourself as a celebration of life? This is wonderful. I would say you can try using healing as a meditative, healing in itself, or sorry, I'm going to say running itself is a meditative tool, and
Yes.
that's wonderful enough. Do we want to move grief intentionally through that? Yeah, what I think would be better is therapy. Go seek out a therapist, a coach,
Yeah.
someone that feels really good for you on your nervous system.
Mm.
That, and I'm going to say, not don't just choose the first one. So many times we get referred by the system or a benefits company or someone we say knows this person, whatever, go do it. And I'm going to say that's a terrible way to choose a therapist because you're just, again, giving away your own power because somebody said this is the person for you. And I've had so many experiences with clients that are like, oh, I've had terrible therapists, you tell. Never had anyone like you before. And I was like, yeah, because you really didn't vet your therapists very well.
Yeah.
So my youngest has a therapist who's gone through a lot of things in his own life. And we chose a therapist. We got a number of referrals from clients and friends. I sent out an email saying, or a thing on social media, actually, we're looking for a therapist in this
Hmm.
genre. I got 10 people that came through with like, reliable people. I contacted all of them, and 5 people got down to my short list. And then we met, we looked at all the pictures and saw who we wanted to meet. We met 3 of the therapists. And
Hmm.
then each of the 3, we did an interview. They also showed us their technique. And by the end of it, we 100% knew who our person was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it a bit of work? 100%. And that therapist is like his therapist now for life
Hmm.
because she is so fantastic and phenomenal and so
Hmm.
emotionally connected. Many
Hmm.
therapists are trained to be disconnected. So you know
Right.
what? Seek out a professional help you if you're going through grief and if you're moving through things and trauma in your life. And if you're noticing it's coming up in your running, I'm going to actually say to you, when you heal this in therapy, your running will get better because your
Mm.
body is going to let you just relax and enjoy it. There's, again, when you move things out of the body, it works better, it heals better, it moves better.
Yeah.
So do that. Seek out therapy as a form of healing to better your run as well.
Yeah. I agree so much here. And I think that is so important for people to hear because there are so many runners that say, running is my therapy, right? Quote unquote, running is my therapy. And it's, yeah, running can be therapeutic, but it does not replace therapy. It does not replace someone that can actually help you and lead you through this, especially if you're in a place that's deeper or more involved than you can handle on your own with like our everyday stuff. And I love that you talk about when we can process these emotions and let them out of the body, that will improve our runs because that really ties very much into nervous system regulation that we talk about a lot on the podcast, right? So people say, oh, this is all the woo and spiritual. No, it's not. It's your nervous system, right? All of these things are connected. People just call them different things, and it's all the same thing. They're all related, they're all interconnected. And another thing that I wanted to bring up before I forget was just this idea of grief. I think that people often associate grief with death and grieving a loved one or someone that died. But as you and I both know, and I would love for you to talk on this, grief can be the loss of anything in your life, right? It can be the loss of a job, it can be the loss of a friendship, it can be the loss of a future that you were hoping to have that maybe some for some reason changed, the family that you had envisioned yourself to have and now you're not able to have as many children as you had hoped for. I think that grief can appear in so many different ways and we don't always label it that way. So I would love for you to speak on that a little bit.
I love that you're bringing that up. It is so true. I think when we think of grief, it seems to be isolated to death. And
Mm.
then we seem to have levels of grief and judgment in grief. And all of those things are zero truth. Like it is, I don't know where we learn that because that's all crap. It really is. Yeah, that's judgment in itself. But grief is a feeling of something being taken away or not happening that you wish or had envisioned it would go that way. So another way to say is grief is love with no place to go. And when you
Mm.
have this future that you envisioned and that now changes all of a sudden without your willingness to change it, that then can bring up grief.
Yeah.
And we can have a grief with a perception that it can be far deeply felt than the passing of a loved one. I see this all the time with pets passing. It is
Mm.
so deep, and yet we don't really give bereavement here for pets passing away because they're not related to you, even though they're related deeper than a baby would be because you're seeing them all the time and they're such a loving force in your life. But it can also be a loss of a job, a relationship ending, a diagnosis,
Mm.
losing your hair, perimenopause. That there's grief associated with all these massive transitions in life. And that's why I say I'm like a transition coach and support because you're moving through something. There's
Right.
going to be loss. And inherently in growth, there is always loss. We are
Mhm.
always letting go of something so something new can come in. Our identity is always in spirituality, we call it a shamanic death, every death of the ego. With every stage of your life as you're stepping in, a part of yourself is passing away. Your identity has to shift. We've
Right.
talked about it before in the groups that we've been in, Angie, that the identity of who you want to be down the road requires you to release a part of your identity that you're holding now that
Yes.
inherently is keeping you from the success that you want because
Mhm.
this part of what you have now is not going to get you to where you are. We hear
Right.
that saying all the time. And it actually is, there's a grief in letting that part of you go that believed you had to do it in this way. Yeah, it can be a job loss. It can be a change of a house. It can be a house burning down. There's so much that happens in all of those transition moments. If you feel like something in your life has been lost to you, or you are something is falling away, and again, not always of your design, sometimes you choose even when you're moving away to another city. Many of us have gone through that experience of leaving home behind to start something
Mhm.
new. And there's an excitement in the new, but there's also that sadness of now I don't get to see my friends and family, or I miss
Right.
my mom's cooking, or I have to do laundry every day. That's still a grief. It's okay to have those feelings. And then
Mhm.
we can also have this hierarchy of grief. I'm like, oh, it's not as bad as that person. I had a
Mhm.
client whose niece passed away at a very young age from cancer, 4 years old, and her connection to her niece was so deep. It was soul love. Like I
Mhm.
100% knew they were mother daughter in another lifetime. And but it was her sister's child, and she felt I can't grieve as deeply as my sister because like why am I crying all the time when her sister is very spiritual and so moved through
Right.
it with a lot of grace, still sad grace, and she was really struggling. That's one of the things we talked about in our session is no, you get to be sad. When if you're sadder than your sister, then that's fine. And who's to say that you're sadder than your sister? Do you have a scale? Did you guys both weigh it on a scale? Like, you don't know. So we can
Right.
often feel like that. I've been to many funerals. I actually personally love funerals. And it's one thing I really love about organized religion is that there's a way to say goodbye to our loved ones. And of course, they're not ever gone. They're always tethered to us by love.
Mhm.
But that way of saying goodbye is a way of coming together with others. We grieve together. We talk about them. We tell stories about them. And
Mhm.
they always attend their funerals. Our loved ones always are there. That's why as a medium, I love funerals because it's almost like a wedding, but for the departed because they're hearing all these stories about themselves and all the people that they touched. And they always
Mhm.
seem to be so surprised at how many people attend their funerals. So it's a really beautiful experience from a mediumship standpoint because I get to feel all that love coming in and then everyone coming together to support. In terms of, I've totally lost my way from your original question.
That's okay, because I wanted to point out something that you did say there. The original question was like how we can experience grief in all these different areas.
Yes.
And I really wanted to point out what you said there because I think that this is something that many people in our audience will connect to, which is this idea of aging. And you brought up specifically perimenopause and how our bodies are changing. So,
Yeah.
this identity of runner or fast runner or marathoner or whatever these different identities and ways that we thought of ourselves in the past, all of a sudden our body's changing. And there's a lot of people that I speak to, especially women,
that say my body's not cooperating anymore. It's just not doing what it used to do. It's not doing what I want. And I think that was such an important part of how you defined grief, is that this was something that you felt that was being taken from you that you had no control over. And I think that's like so many women in this phase of life, that's what they're feeling. It's like their youth, their strength, their vitality, this identity that they had is feels like it's being ripped away. And it's really just an invitation to look at things differently and say, okay, who is this new version of myself? What does she need? What does this new body of mine need? Because we are going through a very significant transition
Yes.
in this stage of our life. We have a different body after menopause than we had before. Like the hormones are different, everything operates differently. And so I think it's really important for us to acknowledge that and be okay releasing it too. And doing so with love, right? And saying the body that I had has served me so well. Now, what's the new body that I want to step into? And what does that body need? And what is this new version of myself? Who's she going to be?
Yes, the final stage in the old five stages of grief model from the
Mhm.
Kubler-Ross method is acceptance.
Mhm.
And that acceptance, and then the new kind of seven stages model is like and light emerging. And so I always say the fastest path to peace is acceptance. So if you can accept that this is my body now, that these are
Yeah.
the things I'm going through it myself at seven, and I'm in the peri, the hot
In the
flashes are coming at
Perry.
night, and like you could crack an egg on my back, I swear. And it is so interesting because in that moment too, inviting in compassion and love and understanding from my body. Okay, what does she need? What does this new body need now to help? Because it is a shift and there's also an imbalance happening in there in the body. So the way that you used to nurture it, the way that I have to oil my hair now before I wash it, otherwise it's so brittle. And I remember seeing my grandmother doing that in Malaysia. She'd have coconut oil through. I'm like, what is this? I
Right.
don't ever want this for myself. And here I am doing it. Is there an acceptance here about this new body that you have and all these things? And what does she need now from you? Because you are a steward of this body too, right? She's taking care of you and you're taking care of her. Well, how can we learn how to be co-creating this reality together? So it's true. Every stage that you go through with, especially with your body, you are learning what does this part of you need? If you've had children, not to say that children is any does not define you as a woman, but if you've had children, you know that before children and after children, your body is so different. It's almost like I had this alien. I said, I feel like I'm in an alien body. I don't even know whose boobs these are. Like, what
Yeah.
is this about? What is
Yeah.
this body? So, yeah, you are always in every stage of life going through different transitions, and your body is so brilliant. It is trying to keep you safe, it's doing its best. Where can you then help to nurture it too?
Yeah, absolutely. So connecting with ourselves, tapping into that. Are there, since you have so many tools in your toolkit, are there a couple that you would like to offer to our listeners of like ways to make this connection a little bit easier? Like ways that we can really give ourselves to like tune in, connect to the body, understand where we might be even grieving. Maybe we don't even realize that we're grieving. And a lot of
Mhm.
that is happening on a more subconscious level. How can we figure that out and find it?
I think we are so brilliant with just carrying on, keep calm and carry on, as they
Yes.
say, and it's just push forward.
Push through.
I come from a province here in Canada that they're mostly farmers. So there's a very prevalent view of pull up your bootstraps and just
Mhm.
get on with it. I hear that
Exactly.
from so many clients. And it's one of the most damaging things you can say to yourself because you're
Mhm.
not really allowing what needs to be nurtured and healed to come to the surface. So
Right.
one of the things I love is journaling. And when you ask your brain a question, it has to answer. Your prefrontal cortex must answer that question. So being in curiosity versus judgment is going to really open up your brain to answering your own questions. Curiosity always diffuses judgment. I wonder why I'm feeling this way. I wonder what this pain is about. So if you could answer this question is, what am I grieving in this moment? And if grief isn't a word that you resonate with, it's what am I sad or disappointed about? Because those are also forms of grief.
Okay.
What am I sad or disappointed or angry about? And then when I feel this, when I think about this thought, and you close your eyes and tune into your body, where do I feel it in my body? Because
Mhm.
it's wild, especially my high achiever women. As I'm like, okay, I want you to close your eyes. I want you to think that thought. And I want you to feel it in your body. Where do you feel it? And they're like, oh, I feel it in my stomach, or I feel it in my leg, or I feel it in my back. And I was like,
Mhm.
that's interesting because where you hold it in your body, you will have an energy leak there, or you will have a weakness in that area. That won't necessarily translate to something now, but you better believe down the road, if you're running and your foot catches in a hole and your ankle breaks, why
Yeah.
then? Why then and not any other
Mm.
time? It's because there was a weakness, and the ankle is about flexibility moving forward in life. And where are you then afraid to step forward in life? What is something that's calling you forward and you're resisting that? So
That's
there's
so
some really great
interesting.
questions that can come forward from that. Those journaling on those things of like, where do I feel it in my body? And then that part of your body, like your back, is your support. So ask yourself, where do I not feel supported in my life? Where have I been wanting to call in more support?
Mm.
Prevents me from calling in support. Where did I
Mhm.
learn that I shouldn't be supported? Mother, right? We've always seen our mothers doing all the things, not asking for any help, doing the 10-course meal and all the
Yeah.
things without anybody helping her, and then washing the dishes after. You're like, what? Where did she learn that? That's not how you don't have to operate that way.
Mhm.
That's another great question. Where did I learn that? And is that
Yeah.
true for me? So there's a lot of questions. It really depends on what you're
Mhm.
feeling and where you're feeling it. But I think it's the first thing is, what am I feeling? Where am I feeling in my body? What's the
Mhm.
story that I've been telling myself about this? And then where did I learn this? And how do I want to move forward now? Those are some great questions to start to journal on that, because you
Those are
get to
some.
create your life the way you want it to be. You're
Mhm.
not here to be the patterns of the past. You're actually here to change those patterns and
Mhm.
create new ones for your future generations. And even if you don't have any children, the people around you are listening. You are important. Your energy is vibrating out into the world. Yeah, do the work,
Do
internal
the
work.
work. Yeah, and I love that. And I want to also point out, because there's a lot of runners that have recurrent injuries. Like it's always the same knee or the same hip or whatever it is that is affected. And we as physical therapists say there's a weakness there in the body. And so this kind of takes that step further, because there is a physical weakness, right? There is actual
Right.
physical weakness that is there. And this is
That's right.
why people often say, oh, like that's so woo, or this like the psychology can't cause this. And it's no, it's all connected, right? Like it's both, right? It is both physical and psychological. It's not that it's just in your mind, because that's what people hear oftentimes when you tell them that there's a psychological or mental or emotional aspect to their pain. They're like, no, it's not all in my head, it's real. And I said, I always reaffirm them, because you're right, it is real. There is a physical aspect here. No one's saying that you're just making it up and that it's fake. But that does not mean that there's not also a psychological, emotional, mental component that goes with this. It's just
Yeah.
that those things are manifesting in the body in a very physical way. And yes, we can fix weakness. I can give you strength exercises, but how many runners have done the physical therapy and they've healed, quote unquote, healed their injury, and then that injury comes right back? And yes, there are training errors in nutrition, and those are all the things that I talk about. But what if there's also this other underlying current there that maybe we don't even realize is there, that when we tap into could give us an even deeper level of healing so that we can get rid of the pain and actually have it gone for good?
100%. Like I just, as you were talking, Spirit dropped in this analogy of you're an ecosystem. You are an ecosystem. There is lots going on in your body. You are a body, mind, and spirit. And it's not just the physical of the body. There's the energy, that the vitality of the body is in
Yeah.
there too. And the vitality is affected by your thoughts and your brain and the thoughts that you think about. So we
Mm-hmm.
already have that component to come into. There's again so many books and so much research being done now that show that trauma and the body are connected. So then there is the psychological component, the energy component, the emotional component
Mm-hmm.
underneath the wound too. So yes, we have the physical, we also have the
Yeah.
emotional. And where are you healing both? Because it's true, the back and the bus driver, So many stories I could tell you about that as
I'm
well.
sure.
And I'm sure you probably have a whole bunch of those as well in your
Right.
pocket. So the talking piece, the healing, the therapy, all of those things will make you a better runner 100% of the time. You're an
Mhm.
ecosystem. You don't
Yeah.
just, it's not just in one isolation. Like your thoughts affect the body as well as the nutrition going into your body affects your body too. And the movement affects your body. Like it's all connected together. Like you said, you're holistic. You
Yeah.
can't think of just one part of it as the physical actual physiology of what's happening. There's the energy that's also creating a weakness there too.
Absolutely. So, something that just came to mind as you were talking was I've had experiences before where either I'm working on someone or I give them tools to work on. So, foam rolling, lacrosse ball, different things to help release some of that tissue tightness in the body. And it will ignite an emotion in them when they're trying to release this physical tight spot. What would do you think that they really need to understand what is triggering that? Or is it enough for some people to not only get the physical release, but also if they were to just allow themselves to cry or to process whatever that emotion that came up, if they just allowed themselves to feel it, feel through it, and process it, do we really even have to know the underlying cause of it?
I feel like moving the energy is one part of it, but I think it
Okay.
could be in some cases, I'm going to say that's enough to move it out, to
Yeah.
cry it out, to yell it out. If you're moving through something and you just want to go, ah, like just do
Hmm.
it, get
Right.
that out of the body. But there is a seed that was planted, and
Okay.
that seed continues to bear fruit every time you're going through something in life.
Mhm.
So if that seed is not healed, then it will continue to come back up again. So one of the ways that you can heal that is as you're moving the stuck thing, let's say the foam roller, and you're trying to open up a hip or whatever, and there's an emotion that client wants to cry, then
Right.
I would say step into the body and feel what that feels like. And what is this reminding you of? And there
Okay.
might sometimes be a story that will come up from childhood or somewhere in the past. It could be
Mhm.
even yesterday that this thing happened. And
Right.
what is that reminding me of? And as soon
Mm.
as you get to the root of it, you're going to know just like when. I would say, just like when. And they're like, when Susie took my markers away in junior high. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh my
You're
gosh,
like,
tell
what
me
does
about
it
the
have to
Susie
do with
story.
anything? Yeah.
Yeah, tell me about the Susie story. And then as you're like, oh my God, that's exactly like what I'm going through right now with my daughter. And so
Mm.
you never know. It's these
Yeah.
wild subconscious stories that we've been holding on to, but the body will tell you, the
Mhm.
body will tell you that it's still there.
Yeah.
So can you dip into those moments and say, okay, I'm feeling this in my body. What's the emotion that I'm feeling? And just allow that to come up from your body. And then, okay, just like when this emotion's reminding me of what? And if there's nothing there, fine. Cry it out, yell it
Sure.
out, let it out of the body. But if
Right.
something comes to mind and this weird story comes to your head, it's because it's connected to the
Mhm.
emotion. So we often can dismiss that or not be present to it in our bodies. We
Right.
just want to move through the pain and get to the next thing. And instead, I'm just going to say, stay with it just a little bit longer and say, where does this pain trying to tell me? Because it's telling you something. The pain is giving you information. It's not
Mhm.
just your body is weak in that area, your torrid ligament. It's there's something else there.
Yeah.
So it's telling you a story. Are you listening to the story?
Oh gosh, I love that so much. And I think like it just there's so many runners that are so type A and they so overthink it. And so I really love what you said there of don't you don't necessarily have to try to figure it out or dismiss it because I think that is probably the main way that people handle it when something like that comes up. Like, why is that popping up? That makes no sense. And we just dismiss it and shoo it away because it doesn't make sense logically, right? Like in our conscious, our prefrontal cortex, it doesn't make sense of why this memory is popping up. And so we're like, that was weird. We just dismiss it. And so if we can get better at just allowing it to be there, and like you said, just asking a question, digging into that curiosity of that's interesting. What's this trying to tell me? And instead of just getting rid of it and dismissing it, even just moving to the next thing of, oh, that's interesting. I wonder why that's there. Instead of, oh, that doesn't make any sense and just shooing it away.
It all makes sense. It's all connected.
Yeah,
And that's one of the things when you hang out with me, I'm always like, ooh, that's interesting. That's
I know.
happening for you. That is everything within is mirroring out into the world for us.
Yeah.
So it's an opportunity for us to look deeper. And we're all on this amazing soul journey. We're
Mhm.
growing and evolving as spirit. We're having experiences and learning to love ourselves and find out what are we here to do and learn about
Mhm.
ourselves and others. And so, in this beautiful journey, your body is a vessel that's got so much information and it's holding so many stories for you.
Mhm.
Until you heal it, it will hold it for you.
I think that's a perfect place for us to wrap up. And I just have absolutely loved this conversation with you today. This has been so fantastic. Is there anything that you still feel is on your heart that is incomplete here that you would like to share with the listeners?
I feel like one thing that's coming up for sure that I want to leave the listeners with is that running inherently and grief are both isolating experiences. You don't often run in teams and talk, and sometimes you can jog maybe. Running is inherently a sort of an individual sport, and you're quite quiet or trying to keep your own rhythm and stuff. So it's talking not normally in running. And it's not a time to isolate. It's not a time to just try to figure this out on your own. You can try. And I know many people who are listening are probably, if they're attracted to you, they're A-type personalities. They're achievers. They push hard. They drive to their goals. They're amazing humans. And you're not meant to do this life alone. You're not meant to grieve alone. You're not meant to try to figure all of this out alone.
Yeah.
Angie's got some great offerings and a retreat that is amazing as the women came together to talk about their feelings and be heard and seen. And when you're in communities like the ones that Angie creates, it is such a beautiful place for you to really just let things come forward and let the group support you in them. You might be I feel like someone listening is very much like self-reliant, unsupported. I got to do everything myself.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say to lean into Angie's offerings, lean into Angie's brilliance because she just holds such beautiful space for people. And I can say that because I'm one of her friends. And I know her brilliance. I know what a great human she is. And so do that. Do that for yourself. Take a chance. Invest in yourself. Be in her communities. Speak out what's happening on your heart. She's got so many tools to support you. And do that for yourself because your future self, everyone in your life will thank you because it will make you an overall better human that will
Mhm.
have such a much more easeful life and successful life moving forward.
Thank you so much. That's so sweet of you to say that. And it's really amazing what does come out when women allow themselves to be in community and be supported. And that is one of the things that happened on the retreat. And it was fun because I know, and like we know that there's so much underneath, right? And like some of the women came to the retreat, like, I'm just going to come and learn about running and become a better runner. And like some of the things that were coming up for them.
Surprise.
Pardon? Yeah,
Surprise.
surprise. Exactly. But it was some of the things that came up, they didn't understand. They're like, why am I talking about this right now? This makes no sense. How is this connected? And it's nope, it's all connected and we're here for it. And it's going to help you. Processing this through this is going to help you in your running. It's going to help you in your relationships, going to help you in your career, whatever it is that you want to improve and get better with, it's going to help you. And running is just going to help to bring some of that to the surface, and then we can figure out what to do with it.
No, those are the nuggets of wisdom and gold. I love when that happens,
I
or
know.
people start crying. I say,
Mhm.
if you're going to meet me, just be prepared to cry because I tend to bring things up in people that need to be healed, right?
Mhm.
Gold, because that's going to move the needle more than the
Yeah.
techniques, more than the tools and the strategies. Like it's the
Mhm.
deeper work, always.
Yeah. And I know you've definitely done that for me. And I just want to say thank you and acknowledge you here because I'm not always an easy egg to crack. I definitely love holding space and helping others, but don't always allow that for myself. And that's something that you've definitely been able to help me with. And so I just want to say thank you and I appreciate you so
Oh
much.
my gosh, I just love you so much.
I love
Thank
you
you for
too.
allowing me in that
All
space.
right. So, Sheetal, where can our listeners learn more about you, learn more about your work, connect with you more? How can they find you?
So, if you haven't been able to tell, I'm an extrovert by nature.
Yeah.
I love to talk to people and find out about your story. So, I'm very active on social media. I'm on Instagram at Sheetal Story, and just exactly my name. And I'm on Facebook too, but I have a business page on Facebook, so it's a little bit more structured. Whereas on Instagram, I really share, especially on my stories, anything that's on my heart. I'm very funny. I like to think that I'm funny. So I share a lot of psychic humor stuff and humor
Yeah.
stuff. I poke fun a lot at astrology and stuff as well. I don't take myself too seriously there. And I have a website as well, sheetalstory.com. My calendar does feel very booked at the moment, but if there's something that you're inquiring about, especially grief support, message me, send me an email at sheetal@sheetalstory.com and send me your inquiry and I'll send you information. I'm never attached to the outcome. So if it feels aligned for you, you're going to know it. You're going to be like, this is a heck yes on my heart. And you'll know that. I book all of my grief clients and coaching clients through a discovery call as well to just make sure that my skill set's aligned with theirs, with your
Yeah.
need. So that way we're both a fit for each other too. And I've turned many people away and sent them to psychologists if you have something deeper too. I
Yeah.
really just want to see you win. So if that's something that's interesting, check me out on socials. I'll be there. You can get into my DMs. I'll be messaging you. I do my own social media. And yeah, I'd love to connect. I just am such a connector of people and learning about your story and where you found me. And I just am such a fan of Angie as well. She's one of my friends, one of my biz besties, I'll say. And yeah, if you found me through her, you're probably a really amazing person. So thank you.
And don't forget about your amazing podcast also.
Oh gosh.
Yes, she also has a podcast. So when you're done listening to this episode, you can go check her out. She's got some really amazing episodes. Her podcast is called The Story of Spirit. So we will link all of that information in the show notes because a lot of you might be running or driving right now. So always go back to the show notes for all the links and all the things that we talked about today. Sheetal, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you so much.
Oh, it was my pleasure, Angie. I just love you so much. And thank you for having me in your beautiful space with your amazing clients and listeners. I don't take that for granted. I actually am so honored to be invited here.
Thanks so much.